Oh my God, it's so good to have her here. None other than Megyn Kelly, spanking new studio. The reason you're in HD right now is to have a look at not just the not just the background, the lady herself. A wonderful smile, a great intellect. Is that enough of a pump up for you? Megyn Kelly, lovely to see you, darling.
That's amazing. It's awesome. I want to play it every morning as I wake up. I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, really good. So, oh my gosh. Politics in America is so confusing at times. Now, latest poll tells us that they are running to the doors for Trump, right? This thing well and truly in the bag. But then, of course, there's the general election question. And there's a lot of polling around, but there's sort of this problem at the moment. Half of Americans, more than half of Americans say Biden's too old. Okay, that must be good for Trump. But then half of Americans say Trump should have been charged with the crimes that he's now been charged with. So what the hell's going on? How do you try to navigate your way through here?
I, you know, I hold on by the skin of my teeth and pray to try to for understanding. Here's what I do see. This is just a devastating turn of events for the Republicans not named Trump. I await some sort of development on how they plan on getting around him. The latest poll out of Wall Street Journal just shows it's an absolute crusher. The support for Trump is only going up, not down. He's overwhelmingly the favorite now. He's only amassing more and more support, even having not participated in the debates. And the number one rival, Ron DeSantis, is all but collapsing. The super PAC supporting him had an emergency meeting right before the first debate, which is about 2 weeks ago, sounding the alarm that they needed $50 million ASAP within the next 60 days, or it was a no-go, or it wasn't going to happen for Ron DeSantis. So that takes us to what, the end of October, if that would have been the end of August. So September, October. So we haven't even had one vote yet. And the DeSantis team seems to realize even before the first vote, which happens in January in Iowa, they're dead unless they can get a bunch more money. They've already had 100+ million dumped on them, and he hasn't moved the needle at all. In fact, he's going the other way. In June in New Hampshire, which is the second state to vote, Ron DeSantis was at 43. Want to make sure I have my numbers right. No, 37%. Now he's at 10.
Wow.
10. He's going the wrong direction. The only one going the right direction, and the others may have like a 2 percentage point gain, nothing to write home about, negligible, is Trump. So then, okay, that makes us look at the general election. What we see from the polls is that the Republicans don't care about the indictments at all. They couldn't care less. They don't believe he did anything wrong. They don't believe he did anything criminal. They think he's only guilty of contesting an election, the same as the Democrats did. And they are full steam ahead on Donald Trump. However, there's still the matter of the swing states, the independents, and how do they feel about Trump? Well, the polling's not very good. They haven't actually been probed so much on exactly whether they're ready to vote for Donald Trump in a general election. But we do know that they don't like Joe Biden. We know they don't like Joe Biden in these swing states. We know that 2/3 of Democrats, and you can always add 10 to 15 to 20 percentage points on top of the Dem number for independents, but 2/3 of Democrats don't want Joe Biden to be the nominee. They don't think he should be the president for a second term. So this bodes terribly on the Dem side. So how this all calculates, if it's Trump v. Biden again, I I give up.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because, again, a national poll at the moment basically shows it's a tie. People like George Stephanopoulos, who's an anchor on American television, but his actual heart lies as a former staffer of Bill Clinton. I love that you're able to have it both ways but still be called an independent journalist, because I've been a journalisting more than I've been a Democrat. Really? Okay. And the lady who, of course, rigged the primary for Hillary Clinton back in 2016, when their poll came out that showed that this is tighter than they imagine, because how would anyone even think of voting for the devil? You could see their heads explode live on TV.
They can't understand it. I love George Stephanopoulos not being able to get past. But what if he's convicted? What he could be convicted of these crimes. He could be a convicted felon. He literally worked for a man who lied under oath, which is a felony. That's while he was the sitting president. That's why Bill Clinton was impeached. He lied under oath. It's a crime. And you, George Stephanopoulos, while you're so indignant about it now, were the one setting up the war rooms to destroy the women whose lives he messed with and then lied about it thereafter. You were perfectly happy to participate in that nonsense when it was a Democrat, your boss, who was under fire. Now that it's Trump allegedly lying about documents while under subpoena, exactly what Hillary Clinton did, the wife of your former boss, you're absolutely incredulous that anybody could get past it. It's amazing what a few years will do for one's perspective. Donna Brazile, yes, openly worked to cheat on the debates by giving the questions that she had gotten while at CNN to the Clinton camp, denied it right to my face, got indignant with me, tried to give me a scolding little, you little lady talk. She wound up being humiliated because I knew she had lied. I pressed her on it and she was ultimately humiliated. And now she's out there like, well, I guess, it's a movement. We're going to have to deal with it. You're like, yeah, you are. You're going to have to deal with it.
So let's jump forward to where we would be at this time, at the end of summer, in the final run towards 2024. The assumption being that, Trump ends up getting there, because I'm like you. There's no evidence anywhere that Republicans are going to do anything other than double down. Hopefully, the people running against him aren't too damaged by Trump. That means they can't run out and be surrogates for him. All of them have said to some degree that they would either support him as the candidate or maybe even forgive him if they ended up becoming president. But obviously, Georgia is the only of these court trials that's going to be on television. And that's going to be sort of O.J. Simpson style, wall to wall. Everyone can watch it, and there'll be, a fair dose of politics and psychobabble in and around that. But the rest of these things all happen behind closed doors, which means everyone talks about Trump, but we don't see Trump day after day, week after week after week. In terms of politics, the conventional wisdom is that you have to make as much noise as possible for as long as possible for people to become interested and vote. What does it mean if Trump can't even talk during the day? Does he just give a primetime speech every night at 8 o'clock and hope for the best?
I mean, he might. There's a gag order right now that's potentially affecting him in at least one of the cases, and I'm sure there'll be one put in place soon on the others. And certainly once the trial gets underway, he'll be limited in what he can say. But to me, this could actually wind up really helping him in the same way the indictments have helped him. Because I take you back to 2015-16, when Trump just kept winning. He just kept moving ahead. He kept dominating the news coverage. How did he do it? He just kept saying controversial things. Yet another controversy, yet another scandal. People would, clutch their pearls. But his poll numbers would go up every time, and nobody else could get any airtime. These indictments, these trials could have the very same effect. The controversies no longer resonate. We're used to Trump. He doesn't shock us so much anymore. These trials, these indictments, I think are the new Access Hollywood tape, comments about John McCain, attacks on the Gold Star families. And so it's the new version of it that keeps him in the news every day. No one else can get airtime. And that's going to include Joe Biden at some point. And the Atlanta trial is, from what I've seen so far, we'll see whether she's got something else, is weak sauce, Paul. It's weak sauce. It's going to be like the stuff that's the most salacious out of Georgia is stuff other people did that there's absolutely no proof Trump knew anything about. And honestly, even that stuff is not that shocking. They've got him on that phone call that we've all heard a million times, and it's actually not that shocking. He's basically saying, this is the number I need. There are hundreds of thousands that we think are false votes, but I only need 11,000. So basically saying when you get the counting to 11,000, you don't have to keep going because I'm telling you there's massive fraud. That's not what Fani Willis is alleging it is, this massive voter fraud scheme. I don't think that this trial is going to go very well for her. And so I think especially when there's a skilled cross-examiner, which Trump will have in the form of his lawyer, that this is going to be the nail in the coffin the Democrats hope it will be.
Last one on Trump. The 14th Amendment. Lefties seem to be rather excited that there'll be a way to stretch the Constitution to make sure Trump's name isn't even on the ballot. How much credence do you put into this that certain lefty states that he, would never be able to win, which means the electoral count doesn't matter, but the popular vote would be affected, that his name will be on all 50 states come November next year?
Well, it's an absurdity to suggest the 14th Amendment bars his run. They're using this provision within it that said you can't hold office if you are guilty of engaging in an insurrection or providing aid to those who did. It was clearly directed at Civil War survivors, people had fought for the Confederacy, and making sure that they were addressed. And in the same breath, they talk about the emancipation of slaves. I mean, it's very clearly tied to the Civil War. And moreover, the Constitution elsewhere provides very clearly what you need in order to run for president. You have to be born here and you have to be at least 35 years old. There's nothing in there about, and also not guilty of an insurrection. That's not they would have provided for it had that been a deal breaker. And they also would have provided for a procedure outlining exactly how you would go after a sitting president or somebody who is running for president based on a different insurrection, none of which they did. All right. So this isn't real. However, that doesn't mean some lefty judge in New Hampshire or elsewhere isn't going to give them a favorable ruling. And if that happens, it's going to go up to the US Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to strike it down. I think the letter of the Constitution is very clear. I think it'll be a no-brainer for the US Supreme Court. And I don't even think they will look at this as a political hot button that they shouldn't touch. They do have the ultimate say on interpreting the Constitution. This is something a first-year law student could figure out. It's the political, forgive me, wet dream of people who hate Trump. But the Supreme Court is there not there to fulfill anybody's dreams.